welcome Olga Berg to Shift Happens. I'm excited that we're getting a chance to speak to each other today. And you are joining from New York, correct?
Yes, I'm in New York and I'm so grateful to be on this podcast. I love your programming, Claudia. Over the years, I've gone to so many events, and it's such a privilege to speak to you today. It's a very thoughtful, connected, enriching programming that you do. I think for a lot of women, it's really a lifeline. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really nice for you to say. So before we go to one of your many, many pivotal moments and shifts, I want to ask you, apples or oranges?
Oranges,
Still or sparkling?
sparkling,
Ice cream or sorbet?
sorbet.
Mozart or Beethoven?
Beethoven, Piano Concerto Number 5.
Mhm. What made you laugh this past week?
My silly dog who
Yes.
enjoy independence. Yeah.
Thank God for the animals, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, since when have you been living in the States? When did you move there?
1990, long time ago, very long time ago, most of my life. But also I lived in the US and in different places and in Europe and the UK as well.
Hmm. And when you're originally from Ukraine, correct?
Yes, well, it was back then the Soviet Union, so
Yeah,
the
yeah,
independent country did not exist yet. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, we uh, we were talking before about the work that you have done for when the war broke out with Ukraine, the work that you've done for the Medical Consortium that you initiated basically or worked on it together with the Polish Institute, and of course that's just one area that you've worked in. And unfortunately, we cannot focus on all the exciting things that you have done. Maybe we will get there. But I really would like to know because I mean the war broke out, you were in New York, you had your work, your family, three children, and you decided to get yourself, involved and really took the lead on many interventions, basically, right, that serve the people on the front line.
You
So
know,
maybe,
yeah, I just wanted to, like your program is called Shift Happens, right? And I think it's really beautiful describing. It happens. These things, they just happen, right? Because of my previous, history working with US government, international organizations, when the war broke out, a lot of former colleagues and friends were reaching out to me knowing that I'm from Ukraine. I had some of my old connections. So I definitely was, as everybody, the whole world was, so moved. There was such an outpouring of support, of compassion from everywhere. But I just happened to be in a place when I knew a lot of people who were making some key decisions. So, flew to London and Rzeszów, and just within that flow of support and help and try to connect the right people to each other, because when a big crisis comes, an unexpected one, like with Ukraine, right? Nobody, I mean, there were people who saw it coming, but majority of
yeah.
nation did not. So
Mm-hmm.
when a crisis like that occurs in any society, it destroys all of the infrastructure, all of the connections, all of the communication lines. So it's like we're basically back to bronze, age, and it's a phone and A to B, and do you know A, do you know, and it just becomes this incredible network.
Mm-hmm.
People of support, of connecting in a different way because the way we're
Hmm.
used to, the way that's approved, by society is in that moment does not exist. It's
Hmm.
destroyed. And
Hmm.
so that for me, talking about shift happens is one is you don't have a choice because, if you remember the first days of the war, it was, the butcher and all that. Things were just really tragic and simple help was essential in so many cases.
Mm.
And so I happened, among various organizations and people I was talking to, I happened to meet an absolutely incredible woman, like this tiny blonde woman, Anna Zawisłak, who worked for Polish Institute of Emergency Medicine.
Hmm.
They are a part of a big entity. It's a big medical publishing house, like one of the major European medical publishing houses. It
Hmm.
runs training for doctors and so on. They also run training for all of the tactical medicine in Poland, for police force, rescue, and so on. And
Hmm.
anyway, absolutely incredible human beings. So one of the biggest issues at a set of a crisis is that we have these large aid organizations and systems that are very inflexible, right, and
Hmm.
immobile. For example, like UN aid is distributed through approved organizations. Well, there are 10 of them, 15 of them.
Hmm.
You have
Mm.
hundreds of thousands of millions of people who are affected. It's impossible. It doesn't work. So
Yeah.
you have to find other way. So thanks to them, we were able to register an entity very quickly because it was established, a well-known European nonprofit. And that allowed us to move really quickly.
Hmm. Hmm.
My friend Erin Pedrosa, who is an incredible branding expert, made us the logos and all of that, which helps too. But and then I met another incredible person is Eric Claude Pena, who's the head of global health at Northwell here in New York. They moved
Hmm.
quick. They are a global health organization, and he's just he's an AR, doctor and amazing human being. So they were able to move fast. We got, funding from them,
So,
set
so
up for.
when, yeah,
Mhm.
when you say that you move fast, it's like within hours, within days, within weeks. I mean, it's.
It took us, I think I mean, it depends because we were, moving. I mean, the first aid that comes is usually private aid because it's not restricted by a big bureaucratic process. So we were full on, acting. But in terms of kind of registrations, and we started working with Eric way before we had formed the Polish entity. The first thing we did is we set up a surgeon training program because the expertise in large gunshot trauma is very limited. Like in the US, it's New York and Chicago, basically, and we have some amazing surgeons here. So we did telemedicine training, and through the Polish Institute of Emergency Medicine and their colleagues, we were able to procure secondhand equipment such as C-arm X-rays, which are rarely used. In the peacetime, you have specialized hospitals that have those kinds of
Hmm.
X-rays, but when you have massive
Hmm.
trauma,
Hmm.
you need them everywhere. So we were able to set that up very quickly, and had some really talented young, Ukrainian surgeon trained with our US surgeon. It was one of the first things we did. We set up tactical medicine very quickly, and we were the first and I think the only internationally certified tactical medicine training for civilian. It went on for over 3 years
Wow.
with teams on the ground, going all over the country.
Mhm.
And all of that, I can go on and, just,
Yes, yes, of course.
well, I don't
And
want to go on. Yeah, go ahead.
um, so that must have been huge trauma, of course, everywhere, and for people. And not only for Ukrainians as the attacked nation and people in fear, but I could imagine also for your organization's staff on the ground. And how were you able to kind of support them in all this? And who was supporting you?
It's a good question. It's a good question. I think I mean I'm just not going to I mean in a situation like we were in
Mm,
um for months you literally couldn't put the phone down because if you did, something broke down the line because we had, trucks going and surgeries and evacuations, assessments by international teams, various it just was a nonstop. And in the peacetime, we have processes, we have hospitals, we can take a shift off, and still our ER doctors are all burnt out, and we have tons of studies on how that's affecting the health. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, I have huge respect for doctors, and I worked with some amazing doctors, from the UK, US, Ukraine, European doctors, and I don't think there is a good answer to that. There
hmm
is also a new phenomenon because in my case, I worked remotely. I went to Poland a few times, but I really, I spoke to people, on frontline every day, but I did not physically go there. So that creates another kind of trauma because, isolation is one of
hmm
the um, most difficult experiences for a
hmm
human being, which we're not always aware of as we are
hmm
living in an increasingly isolated society. But a lot of processing happens in the community, you
hmm
know, with your comrades, with your
Yeah.
with your friends, with your colleagues. So that's a really important moment. We did debriefs. We also had psychiatry teams. We trained with um, King's College London has a very, very interesting program
hmm
that's used in the Commonwealth for the debriefing um, of the military and law enforcement. So we had people train in that. But what is beautiful, I think, if we talk about psychological trauma, which
hmm
is everybody is traumatized. I mean, there's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
no
hmm
end. What's interesting is how Ukrainians took that because they did the training, but then they would drive to the unit and they would cook together and sing together before, they started the official debrief. And I thought it was so beautiful how each
hmm
culture is, has their own ways. We have our own
hmm
ways of being
hmm
human, of connecting, of supporting each other and healing
hmm
really
hmm
together. And I
hmm
find this fascinating.
hmm So your work also in there, I mean, you were on the phone the whole time, also for technical reasons, but it also stands for the area and the field that you spend most of your time in and professionally are attached to, which is in the broader sense communications.
Mhm. Yes, I would say so. Communications and I would say human development, like
hmm
it's how we think, how do we operate, how do we connect, and what is really it all about and how do we make it work. What I saw in the wartime is incredible, fascinating alignment of people from different cultures, different walks of life in a way that I've never experienced before, even though I had some, I worked, UN events. I worked for the International Space Station. I did space to ground for the internet, which that requires a lot of alignment. Like we build things on Earth, we fly them in space, and they have to connect up to a
hmm
micron. Oh,
hmm
we can't lose any oxygen, right? And same in the crisis, we
hmm
cannot lose oxygen. But what's remarkable, I think, is when we are all aligned and kind of the ego steps away, it's really incredible how knowledgeable we are, how everybody knows what to do, who to call, what to carry, who to feed, women, men, doctors. No, almost everyone. The outpouring of talent
Mm-hmm.
and collaboration that I
Mm-hmm.
witnessed was absolutely mind-blowing. For me, this was the first, major. A lot of my doctors worked, Iraq, Afghanistan, and whatnot. They've seen it before in other situations. For me, this was an in-depth, experience for the first
Mm-hmm.
time, and
Mm-hmm.
I hope I learned a lot. I also, I think as a mother, with your beautiful children,
Mm-hmm.
mothers are like that, right? Our world is aligned around our children. And I
Mm-hmm.
think women in general, because we are um, we are there to hold the better world for our children, right? Collectively and individually. This is what we are
Mm-hmm.
born to do.
Mm-hmm.
This
Mm-hmm.
is,
Mm-hmm.
this is a path, right?
Mm-hmm.
I met this one woman, Galina, from London, and we did a lot of things together. She owns a Ukrainian restaurant on the outskirts of London. That woman shipped over 200 huge lorries of aid to Ukraine that through volunteers solicited all over the UK. I don't know. I mean, I know saints. Like I
Mm-hmm.
know saints walking this earth en
Mm-hmm.
masse. Like we
Mm-hmm.
are surrounded by beautiful people.
And it's really fascinating, inspiring, maybe in the end, even a little bit frustrating that it needs a crisis situation, like a severe crisis situation, for people to be aligned without too many, questions, too much ego. You know what needs to be done, and you, tuck, 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 you make it work, even in something as severe as war, which it's fascinating, and of course, as I said, needed in the moment and frustrating in a way. Why do we humans not manage on
Better.
the everyday yeah, in the everyday life, yeah, and
Yeah.
that is something you also when I said that your area of expertise is more or less, communications and the way humans communicate, and how can it be made more efficiently, and how can there be bridges built
Yeah.
through language to create this alignment, this true understanding, true communication.
Yeah, and I would take it even a step further. It's not definitely language as a surface, from which we read the information, but it's about connecting the dots. It's
Mm-hmm.
about connecting the needs, connecting desires, connecting passion, in people. And, we have now lots of literature in the business world about that. And, you know, I think I'm not alone, looking at that. There's definitely
No, of course not.
a lot of people doing that, and we do it through art, we do it through music, we do it through different mediums. But for me, so I ended up in the realm of language, and I worked as a conference interpreter back in the day for U.S. Department of State, a number of international organizations. And so to me, that is something that's very obvious, because we have this idea that if we speak formally different languages like Chinese and French, right, we will invite somebody to help us communicate. We acknowledge that need. It's kind of legalized in our culture, right? But the truth is that we live in a world that's increasingly isolated, digital, and international. We are speaking, we're building teams, we're communicating on daily basis with people from different cultures, different backgrounds, different value system, where the same statement can mean many different things, but we do not
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge the need for translation, that we need to understand each other better, that the cost of miscommunication is
Mm-hmm.
terrible. It's from your neighbor who's going through custody battle to, to the war in the Middle East. Like a lot of all of that is miscommunication. I think in the first
Mm,
place, it's distortion of values. It's um, uh, we become misguided. Part of the reason for me, the big reason that I really got so actively involved in this is because in my heart, I grew up, in Eastern Ukraine, in Zaporozhye, which is Russian-speaking area, and then it was the Soviet Union, and there was never any ethnic conflict of any, not even, there was no concept of that. It did not exist. It is implanted, it's insinuated, it's grown. So to me, this whole historical development that I witnessed, right, it's an evidence. We can grow connection or we can do the opposite. We have the choice
mhm, mhm,
as humanity, as people, each of us in our lives, each of us in our jobs, we can plug into this or to that. That's a choice, right? And over time, obviously, that takes roots, it grows. Um, and the division, right, that we know has ruptured, that world and many others is so obvious. So my desire and my inspiration is to heal that rift as much as I can contribute to that.
And what are the steps that you undertake to do that? And what are you working on, and what's next for you?
So when I stepped out after almost 2 years from the Ukraine project, as crisis also became normalized, unfortunately, and different people, different organizations stepped in. I said to myself, I am really done. I saved lives, I've raised kids, and like I'm doing nothing unless I can find a leverage point, like a one point that can make a big difference where I can
Mhm,
contribute. And to me, that's exactly what we were talking about. It's that ability to translate um, how we communicate to influence connection and communications in organizations, in how we make decisions, in how we make financial decisions, in how we process information. So
mhm,
my new baby, so to say, is called Darcy Code. It's deterministic logic for LLMs. So basically, we live in this new era where we have AI, we have
mhm,
large language models that predict speech, based on tokens, but it's they definitely don't think, but what they can do with the right guidance, which logic provides, is help us see clearer how we communicate. It's like having a stethoscope or an X-ray, for a doctor. Like you can know that the leg is broken, right? But you can also look with an X-ray and say, oh, it's broken right here, and this is how we can fix it.
Okay, that sounds very interesting, but very abstract for me. Could you
Yes.
give an example?
Yeah, so one would be it so we what we do with process communications, it could be anything, a published communication, or it could be our conversation right now.
Hmm.
And with looking through the Darcy lens, an LLM can show you where we heard each other or didn't hear each other. Maybe I could have said something differently, or maybe I switched topics, right, and didn't answer your question. So I can see that, with
Hmm.
that guidance. It can also help us correct for cultural differences, right? Because there's certain things we say in one culture that are not acceptable in another culture, and being German, living in Switzerland, lots of examples of that. I have a good one from one of the teams, where my Portuguese partner was saying, calm down. And I thought it was so rude because in American English, you don't say that. But in Portuguese, it means it's a reassurance statement. It's like all is under control, don't worry, right? Which is a completely opposite meaning. So
Hmm.
gazillion of examples. But
Mm,
as humans, we're distracted in communication. We have emotions. We think our mind drifts to other things. We can react to something by association. So we are not fully seeing the picture. In critical communications, that's a big loss.
mm. Yeah.
So
Mm,
that's the idea. It's a working logic. It produces incredibly insightful things, and I'm very happy to say I have a lot of support right now with this. So I'm my dream is to Darcy the world. I want all of us to have better understanding, more connection, and also shift from the our culture is very focused on problems, right?
mm, mm,
So when you use your note taker, we're recording this meeting today, and you look at the notes, it's going to say, these are the action items, and this is what needs to be with it. But it's much more interesting to know how does Claudia think and how does Olga think, right? And if they want to do this, what is more congruent with Claudia's way of thinking, or Olga's way of thinking? Where do they converge or on the opposite don't understand each other? Because that is not a small thing.
mm.
Because the
No.
true what we did in Ukraine, and to me it's all very correlated, we did not import teams from overseas, let's say for tactical medicine. We found local people who were already doing that work. We had Polish teams come out, train them on the ground. We gave them resources, transport, we took people who were passionate and expert. And I think that's the key solution for entire aid industry. You
Hmm.
have to be present. You don't have to import democracy everywhere. It exists. You have to come, you have to see what actually
Mm,
is happening. From there, you can build highly effective systems with little leverage. And to
hmm,
me, that's the biggest waste of energy. It's not oil. The
hmm,
biggest loss is not energy. It's how we see each other, how we communicate, and how we use those resources, right? Because we did all of this. I call it frugal mom approach. We did all of that with very, very, very little investment,
hmm, hmm,
compared to, what a big organization would do.
hmm,
So going back to that, the goal, and I'll be happy to send you some examples, to look
hmm.
at, but having that even in a conversation with your partner, because when we
I
fight,
was just gonna say this is like a couples therapy tool.
not even therapy, it's like 10 years of therapy in one page, because it
Yeah.
really is true. Because when we fight over groceries, we don't fight over groceries, right? We don't. It's about what we don't hear, what we don't see, and we are human. We're flawed. We are traumatized. We have all
Of
our
course.
issues, right? But in the end, we all want to know each other, and we all want to see each other. It's all about love in the end. As a mother, you understand that you want to see your child, to know your child, and to be there for them with clarity, right? And to me, clarity, and that's all. That's the center of the universe from which we can be effective. I dance, and it's my big passion for many years. I dance tango, and
Hmm,
tango is a dance of connection.
hmm,
And the unity and the beauty that can happen with two absolute strangers, that come together I think, is available to us in all domains, in all realms, in our
hmm.
communication with each other at work, with each other at home, and no one's perfect, but it's definitely my desire to bring that to my own life, first of all, but also to share it with, people who want to have it in their life.
And the Darcy Code is doing this for industry at the moment, for a particular sector, or just it's for
So we
companies, or like who's your
now,
client or potential client?
yeah, so we're in early stages, discussing with a number of clients and some funding agencies, and we're looking at M&A and due diligence. This is a really enormous sector in finance. We don't have anything like Darcy because our entire coaching therapy, profiling HR is built on self-assessment and um, generalized knowledge, which is very useful, but
Hmm.
it doesn't tell you what's happening in this room right now, in this moment, right? So
Hmm.
applying something, right? If you are an Olympic champion or a famous ballerina, you get coached, right, throughout the day. You have, a lot of guidance. So it's one thing to have, some useful information. It's another thing to be able to see it in this communication. This is what happened. This is what was said. This is what was heard. And this is a better option. It's a much more specific way to apply it. It's also quite objective, I would say. So it doesn't, we do not, we're not making, Darcy doesn't make decision for you, but it shows you a clear map of what happened in this team. But that also
Interesting.
tells us a lot about how people will get along in the future. You know, the famous Gottman experiment in 1983 when they videotaped couples and they predicted divorce rate based on
Yeah.
how they might resolve conflict, 93% correct. Same happens at work, right? We
Hmm.
look at people's resume, pedigree, but we don't look at how actually they work together. So this is another piece of
Hmm.
information. It's
Hmm.
extremely
Hmm.
useful
Hmm.
for, it does not replace the expertise we have, but it adds to that a different slice that's highly valuable. So we're hoping that this could be good for that, but also for we have a separate, vertical for organizations, so helping them look at compatibility, at providing communications analysis for key communications. Yes, that's where we're now. But and I built a love translator. I'm gonna one day put it
Okay.
out. I want every couple,
Cool.
you to see each other. Yeah.
That's fascinating, Olga, really. That
Yeah.
that that all this different accumulated experience from work from the different stations like the US Department of State, the NASA, um, and many other things you've done, and now you have the ability to bring this all together. So we will certainly look out for Darcy Code, and it's exciting. I'm in the beginning of letting AI more into my life.
Yeah. Huh.
Not the easiest.
No, it is not easy. That's why I'm really glad because this could be, a very useful way for a lot of people. And it's a big field. It's evolving very quickly. But the one thing I want to say about it is that it's very discombobulated right now for a normal average user. So I'm very excited to bring something to people that is very easy to absorb, understand, and apply practically in your life. I think that's one big step because unifying that intelligence, aligning that intelligence so that you can improve your life. Because to me, I'm very optimistic about AI. I think it's here to make us more free, more human, and learn to interact with that type of intelligence in a different way, right? Because a human being we have many intelligences, not just linear,
Hmm.
mathematical or linguistic. That's one, bucket, so to say. Like we have many of them. And something you just said, that, me bringing all these different experiences, but that's what we do, all of us, you do, we all do as a
Yeah, of
human.
course.
We,
Yeah.
in business, the most successful business people talk a lot about using their intuition. If it was all based on numbers, everybody would be billionaire, but they're not, right? Because we read a lot of other context, right? So to me, it's it's an intelligence, it's a tools, a set of intelligence that is meant to help us uh, be more human and also apply our actually quite superior ability to interacting with intelligence. And as you know, you and I both share that passion of how we raised our children, right?
Mhm.
Really um, giving them as much as we could the nature, the play, the ability to really evolve as fully human. I think
Mhm.
we know that what that means, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Fascinating.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. This really always love speaking to you and hope to see you in New
Thank
York.
you. Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here and for sharing this. And as I said, I'm going to give a few more background information and links to also to Darcy Code so that people can read about it and check out your website and so on. But yeah, thank you for your time, Olga, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you so much.